start. I have Councillor John Boyd, and I understand Councillor Paul Field is going to come on Zoom from somewhere. It was New York or something like that last time. Timbuktu tonight. We'll be pleased to see him. So we have any declarations of interest as well. Now we are going to meet a new officer from West Berkshire Council, wishes to take us into his confidence. That will be interesting, and therefore we will exclude the press and public in order for him to be able to address us at his request, and I felt that was sensible. So do I have a proposal to...
I would present the proposal.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Woodhouse. All those in favour? Very much.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Again, thank you.
Beg your pardon.
I put as a formality, I should say, but I can explain that to the meeting.
Well, don't now, but
Yeah.
I'll try and remember to keep myself alert to people voting against things in the future. So we have got him in the waiting room. Excellent. He is well and kind.
Sorry.
And well, he requested this ability to talk. Back to this. And the business is now public question time. Thank you. And then the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of June 2022. And you'll remember we signed off the accounts, the internal auditors report. That's in front of you. Do I have a proposal these minutes be accepted? Proposal. Thank you, Councillor Woodhouse. Seconded by Councillor Alan Crumley. All those in favour? I'm watching your hand like a hawk now, Councillor Pike. Did I see your hand up? Councillor Grant, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Initially on pages. And if you want to, but we'll obviously control with them. Back to the agenda with 3 minutes, and we get reports of the mayor. There is one of these circulating, and we're going to put it up on screen already. How efficient is that? Let me give my report by starting with some rather sad news. Not everybody in the room will remember Councillor Ken Ryan, but those who do will remember him with affection as an excellent man, former mayor, 1989, we noticed on board, and somebody who we understand has passed away. I know that Councillor Jeffrey will speak regarding former Councillor Ken Ryan. Our best wishes will go out to Flo, his wife.
She's pretty
Flo's gone, I beg your pardon. And one of the first people I met on the council personally, with some august people like Margaret Barrett and Frank Hutchings and Ron Higgins, and there was quite a yarn of them. And we see them pass away slowly but surely as the passage of time wears on. So I'm going to ask Councillor Jeffrey to speak, and then I'll go a minute silence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you say, Ken Ryan was our mayor in 1989, and he was a civil servant who had a quiet manner, and he liked things done properly. But I would really like to go beyond his role as mayor and councillor and give you a unique personal story about Ken Ryan myself. Ken and his sweet wife Flo were well known to my family and to me. We went to church together, and they knew our children. Flo would always take delight in all three of them, and Ken became first town councillor, then our mayor. Incredibly, despite knowing each other fairly well for upwards of 40 years, it was not until this year that we discovered a unique connection. I knew that Ken worked in Aldermaston and was a governor. I had no idea that he'd been a civil servant in MD previously. My own father was a chemist. That when the wrecked hull of HMS Fittleton was recovered from 160 feet down in the North Sea, that he, as a gas inspection officer, was the first man to board her in Chatham Dockyard to ensure that people could actually go and start working within the ship, safe from noxious gases. I was hoping and planning to take Ken to London Division R&R in September to introduce him to other survivors. Well, that is not now going to be, but I'm really, really glad that, however strange the circumstances in which it happened, that Ken and I shared this piece of information with each other just literally a very few months ago this year. And I'm very sad indeed to see his passing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey, and we'll stand now and put the minutes on. Thank you very much. So to the report proper, some of you have this in front of you or it's circulating. I'm not going to read from it. In the past, I have to confess that as the mayor has sat here and told us all about what he or she was doing, I rather yawned. I rather thought, oh, here we go, all the little things you've been on. But I've changed my mind. Oh, thank goodness. I think what I've discovered in 11 weeks is this town likes their mayor. Absolutely. Regardless of political persuasion, forget all that. They like the fact that we have the mayor, and when they see the mayor, they connect straight away. And I've realised the role is very important to our town. And so I'm going to bore you with all the places I've been. But because it's important you know that the mayor is meeting a lot of people. They're bending my ear a bit on things we should be doing, quite rightly so. But there's an affection for the role. And I've found it very, very enjoyable indeed. In 11 weeks, I have undertaken 39 separate engagements. So I'm a bit ahead of my target 3 per week average. Of course, I did gate crash 8 street parties on the Jubilee to get my stats up. But you know, again, everybody who saw me walking down the street, who's this? In my suit and my Union Jack waistcoat. Oh, it's the mayor. And more than one said to me, you made our afternoon just by coming along. So you are received with great affection. even if you're a crusty, brusque sort of chap. And one day I went to the library to the Jubilee lunch they had the week after the Jubilee weekend. And I walked from there to the Ceramics Blue Beetle Cafe. And as I was passing Costa, there were a couple of chaps sitting outside having a coffee, and they said, "Oh, it's the mayor." So I walked over and had a good old chat to them. And they said, "Are you doing your Saturday morning rounds then, Mayor?" As if I was wandering around with my chain on every Saturday morning. It's not the worst idea that you can have. Because by putting this on, you suddenly are the town's probably #1 citizen from here and are able to go and talk to anybody. And even if you are a shy, reserved chap like me, you are able to go up to anybody and say, "Hello, I'm the mayor, how are you?" And I've enjoyed it immensely. My two charities, Daisy Dream and Thatcham Tornado, beginning to get more and more involved. We've had some terrific events. The beacon lighting, I thought, was excellent. The fireworks at the end of them was a tremendous way to finish the evening off. And the Fun Day in particular had more ambition and more scope and scale than we've had in the past. There have been those that are more poignant, like the Falklands 40th commemoration. And then there have been, as I say, the Fun Day, the opening of Caprinos, where I did get a bit of free pizza, which I will be declaring. And then only this last weekend, opening the Spurcroft Pavilion. But last Sunday, the United Service Remembrance. And what I want to say about that is I think it's one of the perhaps top 2 events in our calendar. The ability for people to come along and remember those who passed. Very poignant for me because last Sunday, my father would have been 100 years old. So I was able to remember him on the day and walk around to the grave afterwards. And that one is got to be one of the first ones in our diary of civic events. So I won't, as I say, go into every one of these, but I will also tell you that our legacy project of the Queen's Reign has what's 18 from 45, 27 being worked on my 45 scenes. There are 18 to go, and on this coming Saturday, we'll be in the Broadway under the gazebo promoting our legacy project because we've got 18 people to find, or groups of people to find, to pick up those 18 scenes. I have very high hopes for this. I've seen some early, if you're in the Broadway on Saturday, come and see us. There'll be some early examples of our works. And I'll come on to Deputy Mayor's report in a minute. And I have very high hopes we'll be unveiling that at the next mayoral inauguration. And I will be inviting the Lord Lieutenant to come to help with the unveiling of that, assuming all goes to plan. So far, so good. It seems that I won't be as busy in August. This week, all those who have been mayor and they know the ropes will tell me that it's not so busy in August. I'll get withdrawal symptoms. I'm grateful for your trust in me in this role, and I'm surprised myself how much I'm enjoying it. Which doesn't mean I didn't like the idea of it, but anyway, I'll say no more, except I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I have got the Deputy Mayor's report as well, and somebody else who's enjoying it immensely too. He had to have a little bit of arm twisting. I noticed now he's moving around and enjoying coming with me on some events. That's the community larder team, and others going on his own. And by golly, he's got the bit between his teeth as well. So we are doing our best to present you and the town and council properly, and we think we're doing okay at the moment. Any questions on that? Councillor Cox?
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, merely an observation, especially as you say, from those of us who've had the privilege of being in your office just how glad we are that after 30 years as a councillor, you've had a Damascene conversion. It's always good to welcome a sinner into the fold.
I realise the importance of civic duty as well as political activity, Councillor Cole. So thank you for that. Without any further questions, I'll go on to the approval and adoption of committee minutes then. We receive and consider adoption of the following committee minutes. Finance and General Purposes Committee minutes dated 18th July 2022. Yes, sir.
Could I recommend, Mr. Mayor, that council adopt the minutes as outlined?
Do you have a second there?
A second, that was the
Thank
mayor.
you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. I then have the Recreation and Meetings Committee minutes dated 23rd of May 2022, June 2022 and 18th of July 2022. If you wanted to propose on block, Councillor.
Yes, in the absence of the chairman, I'd have to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second for that? Thank you. Thank you. Got the queue nicely there, Councillor Williams. Thank you. So all those in favour? Planning and Highways Committee, again, three meetings, 17th of May, 7th of June and 20th of June 2022.
Mr. Chairman, so on this meeting, we only managed joint first place in the number of meetings, but I'd like to propose that the committee adopts these minutes of these three meetings.
Very good. Do I have a seconder and Councillor Richard Crumley? All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. The Balance Centre Committee dated two of them, 16th of May and 11th of July. Councillor and Jeffrey's chairman.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to propose that we adopt them as a true record.
Thank you. And a second, please. Councillor Dillon. All those in favour? Thank you. And then I would like to propose the Events Committee minutes of the 30th of June 2022 myself.
I'd second those, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dillon. All those in favour? And that's excellent. There was a recommendation from the Finance and General Purposes Committee of the 18th of July 2022. I wonder who, Councillor Cole, will you be introducing these? Investment strategy in banking and investment policy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, these have been rewritten and tweaked by the responsible financial officer and have been adopted or recommended for proposal to council by Financial and General Purposes. So I would recommend for adoption.
Very much. Do you have a second?
Absolutely second.
Thank you very much. All those in favour? These policies are adopted. We also have therefore maturing investments, and we're being asked to support these. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could give a small amount of background to the investments, we have £220,000, which is our sort of drop dead, thou shalt not go below reserve, which some time ago, many years in fact, we had decided to put as, it was then 200,000, so we had 50,000, with 4 different institutions maturing once every 3 months. So they're on for a year, but they mature once every 3 months. We look, obviously, when looking to renew, at what the interest rates are, and always seek to get the best interest rates going, commensurate with that overarching strategy of putting them with 4 different financial institutions to spread the risk. At F&GP, we were given a couple of interest rates for 2 which are maturing. They've got slightly out of sync, and are maturing 1 month apart rather than 3 months apart. Close Brothers Finance, where we have about £52,000 invested with them. The reported interest rate at the time was 2.6%. Nationwide, on a 1 year fixed, was at 1.1. We therefore asked the RFO to look at whether Close Brothers would accept an increased deposit and whether we could reduce the Nationwide deposit. You may well ask, why am I recommending a reduction? And I'm recommending a reduction of £20,000 in the Nationwide and an increase in £20,000 on Close Brothers. You may well ask, why am I recommending a reduction and an increase rather than just placing all the money with Close Brothers, which would give a slightly higher interest rate? The reason is that a town council to a bank doesn't exist. We are neither fish nor fowl nor good red herring as far as the banking industry is concerned. So when we have in the past attempted to open an account, it is tortuous and the cost to the council is way above, in terms of time, way above the interest differential that we're now currently looking at. And now I do not think we could actually open an account with them anyway. So our strategy of having 220,000 with 4 different institutions would fly out of the window. Therefore, despite the fact that the interest rate with Nationwide is slightly lower, I am recommending that we merely reduce the Nationwide by £20,000, but keep the account open and increase the Close Brothers deposit also by £20,000. That will then hopefully mean that we retain our options in the future, because who knows what's going to happen to interest rates. I would also recommend a year. We can get higher rates with Close Brothers. Apologies, I should have said it was 2.6 at the time of F&GP. It's now 1.8%. So that differential is not as great. We can get higher rates with the Nationwide. They will do 2.4 on a 5-year fixed. My inclination, given that inflation rate is so high at the moment, my gut feel is that probably interest rates are going to go up, because the Bank of England have that as their one club to control inflation. And therefore, it may well be that in a year's time, when these come to mature, interest rates would have gone up anyway. That's an unknown, a total unknown, clearly. That's just an inclination that I have. So I still recommend a year fixed, despite the fact that we can get higher rates on a 5-year fixed. So I would recommend both of those.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Cole for that outline. I was one of the people who was looking to see if we could get a greater return on longer locked down funds. But I think I was looking for a 2-year one, take advantage of maybe some instant interest bounces. I think the 5-year lockdown, I'd concur that I think you're probably better wait and see what other opportunities will arise as the main banks across the world will look to add percentage points onto their interest rates. And would be happy to second Councillor Cole's proposal, Mr. Mayor. Interestingly, if we're not fish nor fowl, maybe we should take our town council logo into the bank.
Before I do, could you confirm what will be left in the Nationwide Society?
That would be, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that would be approximately £33,000.
And you wouldn't be philosophically opposed to putting it on long term, the prudent reserve, if you felt interest rates were stable and you get a bigger kicker, because you could always probably get it out in extremis by foregoing some of the interest. I'll leave it back to you to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. just one point of information, 2-year fixed for base point is 2.15 as opposed to that's Close Brothers. RFA's got nationwide on there. It is 2.15 rather than 1.8. Apologies, Mr. Mayor.
No, I was saying
Your point has totally gone from my brain with that.
philosophically against putting the money into a longer term if you felt interest rates were stable, on the basis you don't want to ever use that money anyway, and the best return is probably by leaving it longer.
Exactly that, Mr. Mayor. We are, I feel now, in a rising interest rate cycle. We will at some point in time go into a declining interest rate cycle. And at that point in time, that may well be that council would then wish to revise the policy on a 1-year fix.
So we have an explanation, is maturing investments, a moving of some money from Nationwide to West Brothers, recommended by, proposed by Councillor Cole. I think Councillor Dillon seconded.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other speakers before I put this to the vote? Then all those in favour, please. Go. That's unanimous. Thank you. Number 11, Lawrence Lane Inquiry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So hopefully this is a fairly straightforward item. At our last meeting, we approved a document which had the title Statement of Case for the Lawrence's Lane Inquiry. And in fact, that was intended for 2 different purposes, but with the same text, just a different title. So by the deadline for submitting representations, we hadn't received the notification on our the Rule 6 status. So we submitted the same wording as representations. We've since been told that we are granted Rule 6 status, which gives us a full participation in the inquiry. And West Berkshire Council has published its statement of case. So in that they have a section on green infrastructure, which we haven't addressed, but they only do it in terms of the site itself. So this proposed amendment to our statement of case addresses green infrastructure in the context of Lawrence's Lane. I think it's a fairly straightforward piece of text. It will enable us to have to be engaged in that part of the inquiry, and I recommend that we approve that. Just to say that we mentioned West Parish Council. I've been in communication with them. They missed the deadline to submit their own representations. They have not asked. I'm not sure if they've been given the opportunity for Rule 6 status, but our Rule 6 status would potentially give them the opportunity to attend the inquiry as our witness. So that is something to be decided at a future meeting, but that possibility exists. And with that, I'd like to propose this addition to the statement of case that we've already agreed. Thank you.
And that is in your papers this evening, councillors. Councillor Lister, you need to speak as Vice Chair.
I'd be happy to second that.
Seconding that. Not too late then in submitting this, obviously.
That's actually, Mr. Mayor, the other thing I forgot to mention is that the date of the inquiry has been put back until December. There will be December. Not entirely sure of the reasons for that, but that, of course, will give the current occupants of the site longer before the possibility of them having to leave. Thank you.
But my point was, yes, statement of case.
That's within time, yes.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to Councillor Pike for updating it. CS18, the Green Infrastructure Policy in West Berkshire, is actually little used, and we have found that on numerous occasions its relevance can be supportive for a community. We've seen various challenges through Sandalford, for example, where CS18 had a role to play. I think that what I would like to say is that the support that this council has had for the residents of Lawrence's Lane and of Southend, has been appreciated by them. And I think anything that we can do to help facilitate other parishes, by coming in on our submission, we're all working here towards the same aim. which I think is the the fact that a field was populated without consent, and it's outside of our settlement boundary. And that actually, when we'd had previous applications on that site for other dwelling types, we had, I think, unanimously rejected those as the council as well. So it is absolutely, I think, clear in this council's mind that that land isn't suitable for development of a residential nature, regardless of who would reside there. And of course, we've now had the establishment of the Green Lane, the quiet lane, as part of the active travel with the post-recovery COVID strategy. So, the area has developed even more into a peaceful countryside area. And I think that's what the people of Thatcham expected to remain as.
Okay, so we, Councillor response.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I fully support the proposal of bringing in Cold Ash Parish Council as a witness, and then the other way that we can possibly arrange for their voice to be heard. Through you, Chairman, do you have any information as to why the hearing has gone back? When this last came up, there was going to be a hearing in September. I'm disappointed that it's gone back to December. Do we have any info?
Thank you. Nothing officially. I think in practice, the reason was that it was not possible to manage to organise a case management conference sufficiently in advance of that date to allow the process, the other timescales to be achieved. Thank you.
We have a proposal, we have a second, and all those in favour? Much indeed. It's back to you, Councillor Pike. You're on the next two as well. Sort of meetings, so Thatcham Town Centre placemaking strategy, item 12. We have a document on that as well. Councillor Pike, over to you.
Thank you. So this relates to, I'm trying to think, it was an email that we received from the economic manager of West Berkshire Council in response to our inquiries to tell us that the specification for the contract for the town centre revision had been published, and that was accompanied by a map showing the area to be considered. And I noticed that the area did not include two elements of business use effectively in the town centre, which was to the north of Chapel Street and a couple of offices to the south of the Broadway. So I've suggested a map. Is that, Clark, is it problem with appearing on the screen? I think it's because the resolution is too large. Anyway, so I've suggested that we amend the map to include those areas. I've also suggested that we include this small area to the north of Brownsfield Road. Not that it should be developed, but it should be included in it, because if it's not included at this stage, the option of discussion is excluded from that work. So that is the suggestion, and I think there is some text to explanatory text to accompany it. Yes. Thank you.
So, just for members, I think, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
That this has got some car buckles on the side of it, but they're important car buckles to.
I also removed a few areas of how the reason it looks a bit irregular is I removed a few areas of housing, particularly to the west of Sainsbury's, which that particular area might be sensitive if it was associated with Sainsbury's as part of the town centre. But basically, the differences of substance are those two: north of Chapel Street, south of the Broadway, and this area just to the north of Brownsfield Road.
Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As chairman of the town centre committee, I want to very much thank Councillor Pike for the work that he's done here and for picking up on the way in which the diagram was being, or the map was being drawn. And I fully support all of the suggestions that he has made. That is ensuring that we can have Brownsfield Road included, that we can therefore consequently have the opportunity to be participating in all the things which may or may not be happening in Walnut Close, etc. And in addition, bringing in the church, bringing in the properties and the businesses that lie to the north of Chapel Street. I think it's been done. I can accept the logic of it, but it hasn't really recognised the full detail of what we need to be doing here in the middle of Thatcham. And again, I will just spill the comment over that if we were getting more cooperation and more direct assistance from within West Berkshire Council at officer and at member level, the administration, I think that would be a very healthy thing for the people of Thatcham and for the town of Thatcham.
Councillor
Thank you, Mayor. So firstly, to respond to Councillor Jeffrey's request, I for one would be very happy to encourage said cooperation. I think it would be very good for both both authorities and to make a better solution. I'd like to thank Councillor Pike for his very thorough work on this map. Could I suggest, though, at the risk of tinkering, a slight addition to the red line, which is to include the under the letters A and T in the middle of Thatcham, to include both sides of the Church Street, bottom of Church Street, and indeed the solicitor's offices. So there are a couple of buildings which lie outside that patch below the middle T. If the red line could be stretched to include those, that would be
Can't follow what you're saying, sorry.
Where is it?
So let's see which map you're looking at.
There's Garden Leader.
You're looking at the original map, not the not my amendment.
looking at the one with five, which is the last page.
There are two versions.
So that's what was
So that's, that does include.
I don't think it's in every pack.
At the back,
So we
it's
might
the
not have
last
it on
stop.
the pack. I haven't got
I
it.
think what you just turned over there, with the one with the red shading in it.
This one, shaded.
That's my suggestion.
I do, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have
We're delighted that two.
We have a proposal from Chairman of Planning and Highways. We have a second of the Town Council Chairman. If we approve this evening, then the clerk will presumably submit this with a proper letterhead and branding on it, because this is your document, sir. And
Yes.
it needs to be town councilised, which I'm sure the clerk will do. So, all those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And we move on. And it's you again,
Thank you.
Councillor Pike.
you, sir.
Councillor out after this one.
So thank you. Just so the council members of Planning and Highways will know that that there are certain classes of planning application that we only consider in certain circumstances, which is up to now has been if there are representations that have been made by a resident to West Berkshire Council. We found recently that we've been receiving a number of applications which we effectively have no say over, which under the current rules we are presented to the council meeting. And those are applications to determine if prior approval is required, which is a legal matter between the applicant and the West Berkshire Council. We've also been seeing a number of proposals to upgrade electricity power lines, particularly to convert them from single phase to three phase, which is to do with increased use of solar energy in resident houses. And that is basically adding an extra wire to the existing poles. And so rather than having for the deputy clerk to present to do the work in order to present them, we're saying that those will only be considered if there is a request. And we've also clarified that the request can come from a member of the committee as well as from the representations. That's a minor change to make the working of the Planning and Highways Committee more efficient. So we focus on the things, the planning applications that can have an impact on our residents. Thank you.
So, before I take it, Councillor Dillon, we're looking at this document here, and as I understand it, the lighter text are the changes. Would you read them out?
Okay, thank you. So the text is in red on my screen. So that we are proposing that we will not consider applications for either applications to determine if prior approval is required or minor changes to existing electricity lines under the existing category. And then we say, unless such applications are subject to representations, that is representations to West Berkshire Council or indeed to us, or if requested by a member of the committee. So we're adding effectively those two categories of minor application and adding the clarification that the members of the committee can request that they be considered.
Okay, I've got Councillor Dillon, then I'll take Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. I've got no problem with those proposed changes. It was more a question, Mr. Mayor. We've had this issue recently of broadband providers for one of the place installing poles, and they do that under some statutory regulations. Is there anything within our terms of reference that allow us to address that, or at least to come to the committee afterwards, maybe even, so that we can register our formal either support or displeasure with the location they've put it, or particular areas within our town that are more sensitive to those type of solutions? I think the one at Ermine Walk with its road configuration particularly is one of those areas of Thatcham that needs a bit more thought before they do go and site the broadband poles.
Thank you. So, as Councillor Goodman says, these fall under what's called permitted development rights, and the undertaker, the telecoms undertaking is only required to notify the district council, and they do so in order for the council to verify that it doesn't infringe certain conditions, like you can't put it in a listed building. But apart from that, the West Berkshire Council has no right of refusal. And the notices are posted for similar reasons, that people can object if, for example, they put a pole in the middle of someone's driveway, but they can't object on general utility, general environmental grounds. So we don't receive that information, therefore it can't be a regular agenda item in that sense, but we can, of course, there are agenda items which enable councillors to bring that to our attention, and we can take action as the need arises. And there are other areas I'll talk afterwards about where this is happening at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure there's a very good reason for this, but I wonder if Councillor Pike might explain. If requested by a member of the committee, why that isn't requested by a member of the council.
Yes. Councillor Pike, that would seem to be a suggestion you might like to consider.
I'd be happy to make that change. Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Any member.
Any member of the council?
Just any member. They probably council needs calling out, doesn't it?
Member of the council. I think you've accepted that.
I accepted that, yes.
So with the amended proposal and seconded by, remind me, Councillor Dillon. Thank you. All those in favour? Very large. Take a break now, Councillor Pike. We've got the council surgeries now. These took place on 7th of May and the 28th of May. On this one?
Yes.
Item 14, I beg your pardon. I'll introduce item 14 if I may. Now, one of our councillors, as most of you will know this, that Councillor Gemma Walker had twins, possibly only about, thank you, only about 4 to 6 weeks ago. She didn't have the easiest pregnancy in the latter stages. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that, but she's been suffering tiredness and the not bounce back as she would like to have done. And as a result of that pregnancy, bumping up against the 6-month rule, I would crave your indulgence and your sensitivity to provide a 6-month extension to that this evening to enable Councillor Walker to fully bounce back from pregnancy. I'm grateful for a seconder for that. Councillor Dillon, could you speak?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I'm the leader of the group of which he's a member. I don't want to go into any more details on what you said, but it's about us being a compassionate chamber, when one of our colleagues from any party is going through, any issue that they feel that they should then bring to the mayor to ask for this committee to look upon them with some grace.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My one beef, or my one drum banging over the last few years has been inclusiveness within this council. Inevitably, I think if we are not going to end up as a council of retired old men, we need people of varying gender, of varying experience, of varying age. And almost inevitably, that is going to cause issues such as we have at the moment when one has difficult pregnancies, etc. So I personally would be exceptionally sympathetic.
Okay, I've got two more speakers on this, so I'm going to take Councillor Pike and Councillor Crumley, then I'm going to wrap this.
Thank you. I support what Councillor Cole has said. I would say that in future, I think we ought to have a general policy on maternity rather than having it as an individual case, because that would help people, younger people for whom it might apply in the future period. But for this meeting, I think that would be a very good way forward. Thank you.
I just wonder whether we can do this. I thought that if we didn't attend meetings for 6 months, then you cease to be a member, and that was the.
The 6 months is not up, Councillor Richard Crumley.
It's not up.
Ahead of the game, hence bringing it to you this evening.
Yeah, you can't, I'm just suggesting you cannot extend it before it's concluded. That's the first point.
Yeah, but just one, if you don't attend, and the clerk obviously will know, once you don't attend a meeting for 6 months, you automatically cease to be a councillor.
Correct.
Which is why, and you've been in the chamber with me, Richard, at West Berkshire, we've done this on multiple occasions for various health reasons for members from across both parties in the past. I think I've probably done it 5 times in my career as a councillor, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councillor Richard Crumley, we are ahead of the 6 month deadline, and therefore we are requesting, as Councillor Dillon's reminded you, we've done it more than once at West Berkshire, an extension on the compassionate grounds and health grounds. You're frowning as if you don't remember. But
I frown as I certainly don't
I have to
remember that, if I may come back. But the way this sort of thing would always be dealt with is that the member in question would come, let's say here, sign in, stay for 5 minutes and then leave, and then they've got another 6 months.
Councillor Crumley, if they're well enough, sir, if they're well enough, and they're not always well enough. So I have a proposal.
I think
I'm really not looking to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think given the discussion, it would be worth asking the clerk for her opinion on this.
That be with me, please.
Yeah, because I think
please sit down.
understanding is
Sit
different.
down. The clerk brought this to my attention that Councillor Walker on the 1st of August would have been ruled out, and here we are on the 25th of July making expeditious decisions to support somebody who we feel is a good member but has hit some health issues.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
I'm happy, Mr. Mayor, to reassure Councillor Crumley that it is, as long as it's a decision that is supported by council, you can offer an extension beyond the 6 month rule. This is that decision has to be taken by full council. It can't be delegated to a committee. This is the last full council meeting, and as Councillor Dillon has said, the Councillor Walker's position would automatically terminate on the 1st of August. Therefore, this is the last opportunity for members to consider an extension.
Can you let me have the legal authority for enabling a council, West Berkshire or town or parish council, to grant such an extension, please? I would like to check upon it. I thought it was an absolute, if I'm wrong.
Councillor, I'm going to put it to the vote.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes. After this meeting, you are at liberty to look at the legislation. I have been involved in council meetings before where this process has taken place. I don't think we're doing anything ultra vires here at all. In fact, I don't think, I'm certain.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this to the vote. We've got a good old chew at this. And I want Councillor Walker to be able to relax and get better, so she can play a full part in the future.
Yeah.
All those in favour of this proposal, please show their hand. And any against? Thank you, Councillor Richard Crumley. That is accepted. And will you inform Councillor Kennedy? Thank you very much. Now I'll go on to Councillor surgery reports on 7th of May and 28th of May. And I noticed Councillor Richard Crumley, you were at the first one.
I was indeed, yes.
Anything you'd like to point out?
Yes, I would, if I may. Yes, we had a successful meeting. Can I refer to one of the abandoned car filing, Dales? I remember this one particularly well. As soon as the surgery was over, I went to have a look, and the table I saw it was. I went, the report here just says certain action was taken, the issue was closed on the 10th of June without telling us exactly what has taken place. I drove around this afternoon to find out, and thank heavens that the car was gone, there was no sign of it. Can Madam Clerk tell us that it was removed by the council because of something we or the council did? Perhaps in future, instead of just saying that an item like this was closed, perhaps you have a little more information as to whether these the complaint, the incident was successfully dealt with, whether by this council or West Berks Council. Same thing goes with the overgrown hedge, which follows that. Was something done about it? It says that it was closed on the 24th of May. Do you have any more information, in other words?
We don't receive feedback from West Berkshire Council, so it would be a case of reviewing and trying to seek the feedback directly from them. Yes, we don't get feedback.
I think each of us as councillors could perhaps use our eyes and ears and follow up and see if hedges have been cut and cars have been removed. We would assume they have, but I think we note these points, Councillor Crumley, and we'll move on to the next one. Thank you. It was the 23rd. Okay, let's see the 23rd on here. Yes. The 28th of May was more of a Councillor Arnold, you were there. What's the notes on them? Perhaps you can give us some feedback.
I can fly solo, Mayor, and forgive me, members. So again, both John Boyd and myself were there, and we had actually a very enthusiastic reception from residents, who many members can well imagine were very keen to see visitors. But no, in all seriousness, it was a very good session. There are several issues highlighted, notably traffic safety and the approaches and so forth. I'm very happy to say, perhaps in partial response to Councillor Crumley's note earlier, that West Berkshire Council were very diligent and followed up and arranged for the contractor to cut the sight lines. So at least one problem was fixed after that. There were 2 or 3 others which escaped me, but they are in process. So all in all, a good thing. And as we've discussed previously, I think that in particular is a good location to have external surgeries along with others at perhaps the extremes of Thatcham Town. So well worth doing again, not too soon, but again.
Thank you very much. So we've noted that item. And we'll now receive reports from any West Berkshire District Councillors who'd like to address us. I'm looking around the table, I'm finding Councillor Jekyll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if the clerk will be able to update what I'm about to say, but we're in a rather curious situation. I believe that they had intended that an individual decision was going to be taken on the 12th of July about the PSPO, the police, the area where they can tell people to stop drinking and move away and not come back for 24 hours. I have seen an email has been sent stating that it's been agreed, stating there's going to be publicity and a press release about it. I haven't seen a press release. I've not seen the actual document that's been agreed, including the map. But apparently it's also capable of being called in. I don't know who can call it in, because at West Berkshire Council, I thought councillors could call things in, but you can't call something in if you've never seen what the decision is. So we're in a little bit of a sort of one of these Bermuda Triangle situations, that it would appear that a decision has been made. I don't know what the decision actually is, and I don't know the actual territorial or the ground that's going to be covered by the PSPO if it has been approved, and I genuinely have no idea whether any of us do or do not have the right to call the decision in. But if Councillor Walter is in a position to sort of go through the other side of the council and try and get some clarity, Alex O'Connor is the officer. Yes, but the comment that I want to make as a West Berkshire councillor is I'm a bit disappointed in my own council that they can't. Possibly they did or didn't make a decision on the 12th of July, but it certainly hasn't come through in any clear format and without any clarity as to what can be done, can't be done, and where we're going with it. And I have not seen the promised press release.
I mean, have a beer in the Broadway and see what happens.
Yes.
Water, anything to add to that? Will you take it up?
Not of massive substance, Mr. Chairman, and Councillor Jeffrey, by routine, I'm fairly confident, please back up here, Lee, that individual decisions are published, they are formal things which are published on websites and so on and so forth. I don't recall hearing about this, and I'm sure had it been a difficult, controversial, or going against recommendations, then that would have been so, but I have no recollection, but I will follow up.
Yeah, so I think Councillor Ardar Waters correct about the ID process. With my other hat on, we review IDs every Friday. I haven't seen it on the list because the shadow spokesman always has the right to comment on an individual decision before it's taken. That becomes part of the pack of evidence before the portfolio holder then signs it off. So they're given a considered view. Then after that, there's not a 5-day standstill period before that decision takes effect, where 5 members of West Berkshire Council, if they signed, would then call it into the Overview and Scrutiny Commission for a review.
Councillor Pike?
Yeah, I've just checked the West Berkshire website. It was a delegated officer decision on the 12th of July.
Different to an ID.
But it does say on the document on the West Berkshire website contains no details about what has been decided, but it does say it's eligible to be called in by 5 p.m. on the 27th of July.
Councillor Jeffrey, this is getting a little bit sort of 2 days.
Here. Mr. Mayor, it is. I find it incredibly confusing.
Yes.
And I really don't think it's an acceptable way to do business. At this moment, the police believe it's been granted. I'm thinking and I'm hoping and believing that it's been granted. I do not know the area that is covered. I don't know what the details of it are. And apparently there's going to be a press release and I haven't seen the press release.
So are you proposing that we write to the West Berkshire Council for clarification?
Frankly, Mr. Mayor, no, I'm not. I think that having Councillor Ardar Walter here and saying that he will pursue this,
Okay.
but it's not an acceptable way for West Berkshire Council to be behaving, whether we write letters to them or not.
Councillor Dillon, did you want to come in or no? So it's with you, Councillor Ardar Walter, to clarify for us where we are in that.
Delighted to do that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Steve.
Do we have any other reports from West Berkshire Council? I noticed Councillor Jeffrey mentioned the Bermuda Triangle. I once attended an orchestral concert and they played the Bermuda Rhapsody and the triangle player disappeared. These are the jokes I can get away with.
I don't think you can.
It's clean and it's not controversial, you know, except the triangle players. Okay, we've then got reports by Town Council appointees, bodies. The lady, the Lady Frances Winchham's Thatcham Foundation. Councillor Lord is Cotton, was it met?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me think about that, but I know that there's been an important change, and that is the name. The name has changed, and it now has become the Thatcham Support and Welfare Society. And that was deemed that it would be bringing up to modern times, and people might be able to recognize it better. But it's the same charity, and I will send that.
We will note that. Thank you for that. And then we have the Thatcham Relief in Need charity and Thatcham parochial charities. Bit of mouthful.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We continue for the Relief in Need part of the charity. We continue to make small grants. Demand seems to be increasing following a period where we were actually having difficulty giving away the money that we were receiving from the various investments that have been set up for the last N centuries. That is now very much turning round. We've been publicising, but I think increasingly the professionals who tend to work, so medical practice, schools, who tend to work with us, are seeing regrettably increasing demand for all sorts of wide and varied reasons. As far as the almshouses are concerned, regrettably, we've had the death of one resident, so we have one current vacancy at the moment.
Thank you for that. Now, before I let you go, I hope you will allow me 1 minute, because I meant to mention a couple of things in my mayor's report. One thing Georgina and I have thought about is a mayor's hand. I think we all take up the post of mayor without any sort of guidelines, and we just sort of busk it until we are up to speed. And there are processes, there are protocols. So we'll be developing a mayor's handbook this year. We've also got a mayor's letterhead with a logo, a mayor's logo. And we've used those to thank people. But we've also recently introduced the mayor's card, where I and future mayors are going to be able to sign and say thank you very much for allowing me to come along, and all best wishes for the future. And that's the mayor's logo on the front, and there's the logo on the back. So nice card, look, go inside, not political, all to do with the colour on the logo. And something I think that
with the future.
could have been this colour. But just a little thing that I think enhances, the mayor's communication with people. And just let me end on this. The staff here work hard. They are all very eager to please and do a good job. Georgina Curtis-Reid, in particular, is an absolute delight to work with. And every mayor, I feel sure, is in great hands with Georgina, who is such a lovely personality and such a support that I, for one, am thoroughly enjoying working with her. So that's a nice moment, thing to end up on, I think. And I wish you well for the evening. Thank you very much indeed.
You wanted to change the colour.